Kula Shanim Rabot, Neimot V'Tavot. Here we are. Yahrzeit of Morainu V'Rabbeinu, Hagaon Hagadol, Rabbi Ahron Walkin ZTL Barcha. We have many Rabbanim that are going to be Be'ez Hashem coming and joining us to inspire us to commemorate the life of this tzaddik who literally gave his life for our community, for us, to continue to learn. It's hard for me to speak, but at this time we have with us our Rabbi Zavulunov, Rav of Congregation Ora Torah, very close Talmid, student of the Rav ZTL for many, many years. Rabbi Rafal, please.
Okay, it's difficult to believe that 2 years already passed since Rabbi Walkin is not here. Personally, for me, Shabbat is a little bit of a difficult day because that's the day when I work, and not really so much time. It doesn't make a difference when the time changes earlier or later. So ever since Lear sent me a message saying there's going to be a Yahrzeit, in the back of my mind I was saying, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And as I sat down here and I started to listen to what he was saying, a few ideas came to me that I want to share with you. First of all, this is something I heard many years ago, and I think it's very true about Rabbi Walkin as well. I heard in a shiur once, several years ago, that somebody once came to Rav Shach. It was an avrech that was learning in Panovich, and at the time the Kiruv movement was picking up its speed, and either somebody convinced him or he decided he wants to spend part of his time doing Kiruv. In Eretz Israel, it's a war. You know, every family that's brought in under the fold, it's literally you're saving families from complete destruction. So he wanted to know what he should do. It's not an easy decision to make, who should stay in Bet Midrash, who shouldn't stay. So Rav Shach, this is the way the story was told. Rav Shach told him, let me ask you a question. What's the turnaround time? How long will it take for you to, let's say, to speak to a certain family, to deal with a certain family, until you think you can, I don't know, to convert them or to pick them up a level where you're going to be able to hand them off to someone else? So he says, I don't know. He says, give an estimate. So he said, let's say 4 months. I'll be able to go to them weekly for 4 months, speak to them, etc. After 4 months, I think I'll be able to improve them. Let's say 5 months. And then they'll be able to go up a notch, and then I'll go to the next family. Okay. So he told them, so let's go throughout a year now. 4 months, that means you'll be able to do like this for 3 families. It's an accomplishment, right? 3 families per year to save for Klal Yisrael is a big deal. Says Rav Shach to him, I want to tell you the following. That's your koach right now. If you're going to stay longer to learn, if you're going to be involved more in Esek HaTorah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, person, accumulates zchuyot because of his closeness to Hashem, because of his closeness to Torah, you're going to cut that time down. Instead of 4 months, it'll be 3 months. Some more time will pass in the Bet Midrash. If you stay, you'll be able to cut that time down to 2 months. And so on and so forth. Rav Shach told him, it comes to a point where some people, because they reach a certain level, a conversation with them, sometimes even a word, a statement. People have stories with the Chafetz Chaim. They sat with him for a few minutes, and he said to them a few words that I'm sure they heard many times from other people, and it didn't penetrate. But when they heard it from him, that's it. As they say, Nafal HaSimon, the coin dropped. The person, all of a sudden, something clicked, and he decided he's going to make that change. Why does that happen? He said, because the person who was speaking to him, it came from a very, very holy person. He had a lot of zchuyot, he had a lot of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His words, even though they're the same words on paper, they penetrate much deeper. And you have sometimes a person who's very, very big, by a single word he's able to change. Rabbi Walkin had this ability. He tried to describe to somebody, what did he do? So what did he do? I didn't get it. So he came to the shiurs, he gave a very entertaining shiur. So why did people walk out of that shiur inspired or happy? Why do they want to come back? I would write down on a piece of paper for you, like a script of a movie. I don't know if the words could describe it. you wouldn't be able to see it. And it was the type of jokes that he said, the type of derogatory that he said, you could have heard it somewhere else. It was the person that was speaking them. It wasn't so much what he said, but who was saying it. A person that walked into the shir felt a certain connection. Another thing that I realized, and I think Leo will agree with me, you didn't feel like you were being, what's the word? He wasn't there to be mirachem on you. He made you feel like you're an equal member of the shir. I didn't feel like it was an ebech case. Rachmanus, Bukharim boy came in, he's just starting to learn, let's praise him, try to build him up. Person had a good question, he gave praise for it. If he said something out of line, and I remember a few times that I said something that was out of line, right away, stopped me. Sometimes it was soft, sometimes it was harsh, but he wouldn't let the opportunity pass. Why? Because he didn't treat you like he wasn't there to be like a doctor and you're a patient. Oy vey, look, you poor baby that you are. He treated you like a man, and that gave people confidence because, if this rabbi is saying, I'm capable, I have a head, I'm able to learn, I'm able to daven, so that means, if he sees that in me, that means I must have it. Before I walked in, I was trying to find something appropriate to say, and happened to have looked through Shmuel Birnbaum's Sefer and Chumash. In Parashat Shmini, it says that Ahron, when his two sons passed away, there was a korban that they offered, and part of the korban that should have been eaten was burnt. Moshe came and he asked, where was this korban? Was it eaten? And Elazar and Atamar told him, no, it was burnt. And it says that Moshe got angry. Veiktsov. And Ahron came to him and said, look, somebody just passed away today. It would have been right, it would have eaten. Moshe Rabbeinu, V'utav be'enav, it was good. He agreed to him that it was a correct thing that he did, that he didn't eat it. Shmuel asked the question, he says, that's the way that a person behaves? Somebody does something wrong, you just blow up at them, you attack? It's halacha, right? You see a person who's a Yerei Shamayim who does something that seems weird to you, seems questionable. Come over to him, ask him, why'd you do that? Maybe he has an explanation, especially talking about Ahron HaKohen, not stam a guy in the street. It was his own brother who he knew was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. Certainly he had a reason. Even if he didn't have a reason, he made a mistake, but that's not a way to talk to a person. So Shmuel Birnbaum says the following, that's what they bring down in the Sefer. He writes that part of a Rebbe teaching a student is teaching him the things that he should not be saying. Famous story they say with Baruch Ber, that they asked him, his Rebbe was Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, they said, why are you so attached to your Rebbe? There are many Gedolei Israel, there are many Sfarim, you can open up Rabbi Akiva Eiger, go to other Sfarim, go to other Rabbanim. What's this attachment to your Rebbe that you have? So he said, I have to ask my Rebbe. He went to Reb Chaim and he asked him, what's the pshat? Why is a person so attached to his Rebbe? There's many Sfarim today. So Reb Chaim told him, he says, from Sfarim you learn what to say. Person's learning a sugya, he has maybe a chiddush, he's, I see this in a sefer, so I know I'm on the right path. Other people are saying it as well. He says, your Rebbe will teach you what not to say. There's mahalchim, there's all kinds of unique, things that a person comes up with, things that he thinks nobody else thought of. This is my new way in serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu. You need a person who's a gadol b'Torah to look it over and say, yeah, this is good, this is not good, this is kosher, this is pasul. That you're not going to get from a sefer. That you need a person who's going to be next to you telling you, yes, no, yes, no. Rav Shmuel Berman says that was Pshat Moshe Rabbeinu. Sometimes a teacher, it's not enough just to tell you, what? I asked the question, the student responded, and you say, no, it's incorrect. Sometimes you have to show how incorrect it is. And the only way you can show how incorrect it is either by making a face, by saying something that sounds very, very hurtful, painful. There's examples in the Gemara that one of the Tanaim was teaching a student, and he asked him a question, and the student responded. It was a class. He responded. He gave an answer. Bar Kapar, I believe it was the one that answered. And the Rebbe who was teaching, he says, Kamdumani, it seems to me, she'en lo moch b'kod kado. This guy has no brain. Can you imagine to yourself sitting in a shir, the Rebbe asks a question, and you offer an answer, and the Rebbe says, I think today you left your brain at home. Would anybody walk to come back to a shir like that? Probably in America, the way the generation is, I don't think anybody would come back. It would be so ashamed, so hurt, you wouldn't walk in. So he says, how could it be that Rebbe talked this way? The answer was, he knew the student understand who, I'm your Rebbe, you know what I mean for you, right? Why am I talking to you this way? Because I want to show you that you're not just wrong, you're dead wrong. You're way off. This is not a story that should ever be entertaining. Rabbi Walkin had this quality as well. He knew how to measure up a person that walked into a room. Those people that walked in the first time, we had a conversation with them, he saw the person was sensitive. It was a different story. It was a different Rabbi Walkin. Very accommodating, things that they said, even though they were completely off course. I hear, maybe that's what you mean. If it was one of the Talmidim that was in the kollel, or people that he knew from years back, that said something that was out of line, either made a joke that was out of line, or said a pshat that was out of line, cut him down like a knife. Why? Because I'm coming to educate you. This is not just to entertain you, this is not just to give you a good feeling. I'm trying to teach you a mahalach for your life. That is something that even with all the shiurim, the recorded shiurim, the svarim that are coming out, this we're going to miss very, very much. What he said, Baruch Hashem, a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it, is either on tapes, it's in writing, and people remember. But the things that, if we would have been around right now, in the situation where I am right now, tell me, Rafal, this is kedai to do, this is not kedai to do. That, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to have that type of relationship with them anymore. And that's going to be very, very missed. The other thing that I want to mention, for those that don't know, Rabbi Walkin, the Walkin name, I should say in general, it's a name that's not new to this community. Rabbi Moshe Walkin and his Rebbe, they did untold things for Klal Yisrael even before the Bukharians came to these shores. Certainly when they came to these shores, I can imagine myself in their age, in my late 50s and 60s, a new generation of immigrants comes in. What does this have to do with me? I already did my thing. I invested into my part of Klal Yisrael. I had a shul. I wrote svarim. People know me. I did my job. This is a family, and I'm looking at Rabbi Avram sitting in the crowd and other people from the Walkin family. For them, every time a challenge comes up, it's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only talking to them. They're not looking and saying someone else will come and pick up the ball and they'll deal with it. Rav Moshe and Rav Ahron after him and all the other brothers as well, they see our community as their community, our family as their family, and they participate in the smachot, they participate in chas v'shalom of their tzarot. They are there. And that's why people feel very, very close to them, people feel very trusted by them. Rabbi Walkin was very, very much like that. He didn't see Bukharians as a separate tribe, as a separate group. Again, like a Rahman's case, we have to help them out. This is Klal Yisrael. He spoke to us and about us as if he would speak about any Ashkenaz Bacher. It didn't make a difference to him who he was. The boy is learning, he's coming, he's davening, you see shtaging. Why shouldn't he have the same chance as everybody else? I remember there was an incident at one point where he tried sending a Bukharian Bacher to sit in yeshiva in the tri-state area, and apparently the boy, I'm not sure what the reason was, but he didn't get the reception that he should have gotten when he came to yeshiva. The Maggid Shir didn't... Maggid Shir basically felt it was below his dignity, below his level that such a boy should come to his shir. And Rabbi Walkin was very upset. Very, very upset. I remember he came to shir that day, he says, I cannot believe somebody who's quote-unquote right in the Torah world, Klei Kodesh, that's how you treat a Ben Torah? Even we understood. We said, Rabbi, he's Bukharian boy, just started learning, What does that matter? What does it make a difference? I'm telling you, I learned with the boy. I'm signing off on him. I'm telling you this boy has potential. That's how you treat a boy. It hurt him very much. Why? Because he didn't look at people with different colors, with different categories. Oh, he's Bukharian, he's Sfardi, he's this. You're coming to learn? You're in. You're part of my family. And those that knew Rabbi Chaimov's kollel, which Rabbi Chaimov did a tremendous amount for us as well, Persians, Moroccans, Georgians, Teimanim, we had all types over there. People came from a European background. Anybody who wanted, Rabbi Walkin was available. If you're coming to learn, you're showing interest, that's it. He's available. He's for you. He's like your father. He's going to deal with you. He's going to sit with you. He's going to talk to you. Anything that can help you to grow, to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Very, very, very hard thing to find nowadays because the world is so quick and everybody's very busy. Everyone feels that they have their niche. He didn't feel like he had a niche. His niche was helping people, period. It wasn't just speaking and it wasn't just this. Helping people. One of the Avrechim had a Shalom Bayis problem, he was there. Somebody needed to talk because he didn't have children, he was there. Somebody's father passed away, he was there. He needed kids to get into yeshiva, he was there. It was like a person that was basically like a parent. A parent doesn't have a specific hat that he wears. Whatever his child needs, that's what he's going to do. When Rabbi Ilan Meirov joined the kollel, and he had these grand ideas about starting an organization, could have been shut down like this. Rabbi Walkin didn't shut it down. Adarabah, go for it, go for it, go for it. And everybody knows, anybody who has headed a big project, without encouragement, it's like saying you have a tire with no air inside. Without encouragement, this wouldn't have gotten anywhere. It was because of his encouragement, because of other people's encouragement, but to a large extent because of Rabbi Walkin's encouragement, he went ahead and look what it became. Chazak became a word, this word, Chazak, everybody knows. I go to California and they know the word over there as well. Oh, it's Chazak lectures. Why? Because there was a person who pushed it along, who didn't look at it like a chesed project. He didn't say, oh, like I said, Nebuch, we have to help them out. You're capable. Why should your community be any less than our community? It's a very, very difficult loss. I know for the Lakewood community, he was a tremendous figure as well. And like any Adam Gadol, like any great person, because he's so great, people that have shaykhis to them only see a small part. They don't realize that he had the shaykhis in other areas as well. And I'm sure that he had very, very close pharaohs in Lakewood. I saw some of the videos that came out after his patira of functions that he participated in, shiurim that he gave, and organizations that he was shaykh to. It's a very, very big loss. Lear keeps saying it, and it's very, very true. As much as he was a Talmid Chacham, and he was a tremendous Talmid Chacham, he was more than anything else a father. He was a person who was ready to give you his time, his energy, his tefillot. You were his. And that's a very, very difficult thing to find. And Mashiach will come and we'll see him back. But the loss is a very difficult loss. His community could have used him, could have used many more like him, because examples like him give people inspiration. They give people hope to see that this is what Torah makes a person into. And all we can say is that all those Talmidim that went through his hand, and there were many, Rabbi Mordechai, myself, Rabbi Meir, of many people whose lives he touched, many of them went on to begin organizations, become heads of shuls, and etc. All of this is his chuyot, his merit, and I'm sure he's very, very proud. There's one thing that I remember he said to me every single time he saw me for the last 10 years. Rafael, when I see you, it's all worth it. And I know I wasn't the only one that he said this to. I'm pretty sure he wasn't the only one that he said it to. He saw his Talmidim's success as his own success. And you saw that he wasn't saying it just as a thing that you say to a person when you see them. He genuinely took pleasure in seeing his Talmidim succeed. It made him like, my son, my son. And I know this is true with Rabbi Walkin's parents as well. They participate in our smachot. Mama, they say, it's my einiklach, this is my grandchildren. I'm not coming to a stranger. It's not because he was once part of my yeshiva. This is my grandson. It's a very, very difficult loss. But I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is managing to making sure that Klal Yisrael is not going to be without proper leaders. Afal Pikein, we miss him very, very much. We want to say thank you to his family for basically donating him to our community. I want to say thank you to the Rebbetzin. I want to say thank you to the kids. They participated in his project. Many times they sat by him. I remember we used to getting breakfasts for them and running around getting coffee for them. Them running around the yeshiva, making trouble. They were part of this project. This is part of the Walkin project that made sure that Queens thrived, that the Bukharin community and the Sephardi community at large thrived. And they deserve a big part of the credit as well. That's how I want to end off by saying I have tremendous hakarat hatov for the Walkin family at large, specifically for Rabbi Walkin's Rebbetzin. She should have a tremendous nechama to see how much good he brought to the world and to his children as well and his Talmidim. He is very, very proud of you, all of you, and I'm sure he's looking down and he's smiling, and this is the type of impact that he left in Queens and in the world at large. Yeh zichro baruch.
So we're Shlita. As was mentioned, the Walkin Mishpacha, we want to welcome his son from Lakewood, Shlomo, who is continuing the legacy with Rabbi Ahron Foundation, with Sfarim, with articles, with videos. It's unbelievable. We have with us his younger brother who's involved with the revolution of Chazak. He's a very big Mikar for over 30 years, Baruch Hashem, and we're going to ask Rabbi Ahron Walkin to say a few words, please.
Okay, so, it doesn't get easier by the year. People think, and a year passes, another year passes. It doesn't get easier. And I'll tell you why it doesn't get easier, and I'll tell you why it gets harder. I'll tell you why it gets harder. You know, Yaakov Avinu, the pillar of B'tachon, the pillar of Klal Yisrael, he took Avram and Yitzchak's teachings and he encompassed the chesed, the yira, and he made it into Torah. That's what he did. So he had the midah of chesed, yira, but he made it into a Torah. Therefore, Yaakov Avinu was zeicha to have the 12 shvatim because he encompassed everything. Baal B'tachon, I'm sure, trusted in Hashem, loved Hashem, yet for 20-something years, he couldn't get over the patira of Yosef. So it's an unbelievable thing. It's an unbelievable thing that Yaakov Avinu couldn't just say after Yosef disappeared, after Yosef was taken, he wasn't sure, and a day later, Yaakov Avinu could have said, Hashem runs the world. Hashem knows what he's doing, and if this is what Hashem wants, this is what Hashem does. So for 20 years, over 20 years, he couldn't get over the loss of Yosef, to the point that it affected his ruchnius. It affected his ruchnius taka. He lost Ruach HaKodesh. Certain amount of Ruach HaKodesh he lost. Why? Because a person has to be besimcha, and he couldn't be besimcha. So the Medrash tells us that he lost a certain amount of his Ruach HaKodesh. But Yaakov doesn't know he lost this Ruach HaKodesh. Yaakov doesn't know that this is affecting him spiritually. Yet, he couldn't get over the loss of Yosef. The question is why. So there's a Medrash that says that, I did it in that way, the Midrashim that say that when he wasn't really nifter, so therefore he didn't have what we call closure. And therefore his emotions were in between. In other words, the Metzias was that he didn't know, so therefore the Metzias in his machshava, in his thought, without him realizing, was that there was no closure. This is a midah that Hashem wants a person to have, to understand that there's a beginning, there's an end, and when you're in between, you just can't find peace. You can't find peace. So there's a medrash like that. I saw many years ago an unbelievable vart, and the vart goes like this. Yaakov, there's two types of loss a person could have. He can have a personal loss, but then he can have a communal loss, a loss that's not about him. It's about people around him. Yaakov Avinu was okay with the loss that he lost Yosef. That he lost Yosef was okay. He knows Hashem runs the world. But the communal loss that Klal Yisrael lost Yosef, that you don't overcome. The fact that Yosef HaTzadik was lost to the world, in his mind, for that there's no nechama. There's no nechama when the world loses something that they can't replace, Torah-wise. So the personal loss, Yaakov Avinu can handle. Hashem runs the world. But Hashem didn't want him to have nechama for Klal Yisrael's loss. For that, you don't get over something. So it's unbelievable for me. I feel my brother every single day. I cry when I mention his name, because it's not that 2 years ago he was nifter. To me, it's as if last night he was nifter. So for me, it's not a personal loss that I cry for. I cry for the community loss. I'm not crying for my own personal loss. Klal Yisrael, the Bukharian community, the neighborhood, Lakewood, lost someone they'll never replace. And I want to tell you, we lost Reb Chaim Kanievsky a few weeks ago. And I will tell you, I used to go to Reb Chaim, I tried almost every year, every few years, just to get the bracha v'atzlacha bua. I would go for that. That's what I went, when I took my children to Eretz Yisrael, I made sure I went not one time, but I went for a week. I went 2-3 times to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Every 2 days, I wanted to go again. And yet, with all that, you can't understand the loss until it's gone. It's a Peladica thing. As much as I respected Reb Chaim Kanievsky ZTL, as much as I thought he was my Rebbe in a way, as much as I thought that I'll never, I'll get over it, but I'll never get over it. You can't imagine the loss after he was nifter. It's unbelievable. It's like, why don't you understand this before? The answer is Hashem obviously doesn't want you to understand that for whatever reason. Tzadikim mikrum chayim b'misasam. Therefore, the loss of Reb Chaim Kanievsky is felt by his closest after you don't even see him anymore. You would think that people that would see him, the answer is that's the way of the world. That's the way of the gullus. We don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. Just the way Hashem runs the gullus. I think it's a gullus thing, obviously. And what do you have to do? You have to obviously go retroactively and try to always remember the people that are with you, not to be mezalzel with them, and not to lose that thought. So my brother's loss was a tremendous loss, not just for me and my family, obviously, but for Klal Yisrael. I always say to myself, I wonder what my brother's shiurim, I always say, but this is what bothers me also. Think of all the shiurim he put out. Think of all the Torah anytime. Think of all the classes. Imagine if he had another 30 years. What could have become from Rabbi Ahron Walkin if he had another 30 years? I'm serious. It's not something we can't even understand. And I will tell you, I have on my wall, I have a picture of the Chazon Ish, I have a picture of the Stipler, a few, I have a picture of Chaim Kanievsky, I have a few on the corners of Rebbe Yosef, not that they're any different or anything, but Rebbe Yosef, and I have my brother's picture on my wall. And I honestly put it there, because to me he's as equal as them. And it wasn't because he's my brother, it's because I knew him personally, and I knew what he stood for, and I knew his Yediyas HaTorah at the age of 54 years old. You know what Yediyah this man knew? Not just Ashkenaz halacha, all Sephardi halacha. You can come to him, but any of, from Yalkut Yosef, whatever it was, Rebbe Vadias Shitas, everything he knew. It's a Peladic thing. Does anyone know Kol HaTorah Kula? No one knows Kol HaTorah Kula. It's, I always say, I have to say this though, I hear the name, he knew Kol HaTorah Kula. The Torah is infinite, okay? You need to know this. The Torah is infinite. So, the actuality, even Reb Moshe Feinstein, who was, and Reb Chaim, they knew 0.999999% for the Torah. Because if the Torah is infinite, that's all you could possibly know. But as a human, very few people had the Yediyas HaTorah that my brother had. Very few people. He was my paisik, so I don't ask shilas anymore. No, so, but he was the guy I went to. I remember actually calling up my uncle, Rabbi Kelmer, who was also nifta last year. Very special tzaddik, very special person, big gadol, big paisik. I remember calling him up after the shiva, and I said, "Who am I going to ask shilas to?" I'm serious. Who am I going to ask shilas to? I know, I don't want to bother my father that much, and he told me you can ask me, but he says I don't know if I can answer like your brother knew how to answer. That's what he told me. And this man was a gadol. This man's a giant. So it's not about what what we lost, but how do we continue with what we lost into the present time, to not lose track and face of who the person you're mourning is. That's the greatest thing you can do for yourself. Even if they're not living. How? Through the shiurim, through their ideals, through the thought processes that you understood. So a loss like that, we can stand up here, and I'll be honest with you, in 45 minutes we all go home like nothing happened. We go to the pizza store to pick something up, and like nothing happened. The key is to not let the inspirational moments disappear. To live with those inspirations and use them as guides to bring you to your future. Anyone that was Zaycha, and I will tell you, Rebbe Ephraim ben Mordechai, I want to tell you something. You told me a story, I'm not going to repeat it, but you told me a very personal story 2 years ago when I was in your office. Remember? With that Rebbe. I'm not going to say it. That is one of the, if he wants to tell it you, he can tell it you, one of the most amazing stories of what my brother was. It's something that he never looked at a situation black and white. He looked at the complete picture of what the story was, and then he gave his psak. You should know, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was about to kill the Mitzri, what does it say? That he looked right and left. So what does he look right and left? So the Medrash says he looked to see if he had any Einiklach or any family before that would affect the world if he did something to this Mitzri, and he looked into the future to see what might become of this person, that maybe he doesn't have a right to kill this person. Politic thing. This guy deserves death. He needs misa. He needs to be able to he needs to be taken out of the situation of this world. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu looked in the past to see if there was any good that came out from the past, and he looked into the future to see if any good will come out, and therefore maybe I don't have a right to kill this person. Politic thing. But he needs what he needs to get. The answer is no, it's a big picture. Not just the situation, it's the whole picture of a situation. My brother, Zechron Levracha, was able to look into a matzah. He can give a psak halacha to one person, and then 5 minutes later give a different psak halacha on the same shaila to someone else. That's what a paisik does. That's what a gadol does. He understands the matzah, he feels the person, he understands the person, and then he does his psak halacha. That's what a gadol does. Very easy, not I don't know anything, but it's very easy for people to just rattle off halacha. It's easy. You know it, you say it. No, to understand the matzah is what makes the difference between an adam gadol and a talmid chacham. It's, special, but that's the difference. My brother was made in dava miteich dava. He would talk to me even. I want to tell you, we became very close in the last 2 years. He would call me 3 times, 4 times a day, because I was going through my own personal things. And every 3 hours he would say to me, how you feeling now? I'm going to give a shir for the next 3 hours. Can I call you in 3 hours? If you want me to call you in the middle of the shir, I'll call you in the middle of the shir, but can you wait 3 hours till I call you? I said 100%, I'll call you in 3 hours. And it wasn't just me. It was hundreds of people. Everybody you asked them, he always was, me and him, we were like very close, father and son relationship, Rebbe and Talmud relationship. It was me, I was the guy. Everybody felt they were the guy. It's an unbelievable thing. We have this personal relationship. The next guy, me and him have this. Everyone had a personal relationship as if they were a ben yachid to my brother. It's unbelievable. It's something that you don't find. You don't find that today. And you know where it comes from? It comes from 2 things. Obviously Torah and Yerushalayim and understanding the ways of Hashem and what Hashem wants from a person. But you really get it from when you look at somebody, you look at yourself. He viewed someone else even greater than he cared for himself. He cared for someone greater than he. Once you have an attitude like that, your horizons open up. Your world opens up to understand. And the people that are in chinuch, to look at a Talmud and to view him as your own son, it's a different ballgame. Before you pass judgment on a Talmud, before someone kicks out a Talmud, before someone says something bad about someone, view this person as this person was my own child, and I loved him, obviously. My own child. How would I deal with this person? How would I look at him? How would I talk to him? Would it be different? Of course it would. That's how you have to view not just a student, but even your friend. That's how the guy that sits next to you in shul. That's how you got to view it. My brother was able to do that. He looked at a person, and he didn't just see a physical person in front of him. He saw the emotional person standing in front of him. And you don't find that. Obviously, the big Gedolim, obviously, that they gave their life. That was my brother, always giving of his time, always giving of himself. So I just want to mention that, I could spend hours talking about the greatness of my brother. It's not for now. But you know what the bottom line is? When we leave here tonight, we shouldn't just say we were at an event, but we continue to be in that event. Because he was your Rebbe, he was your father, he was your mentor, he was your friend. And for that, you got to constantly be working not to forget. But not just to forget who he was, but what he stood for. And we know what he stood for. Torah, chesed, love, kindness. Just give of yourself. And you know what? That's the most freeing thing. If I could tell somebody, wow, a person should go into Pesach Seder, the way to go in free is when you let go of all the chains. You let go of the chains of taiva. You let go of the chains of desire, addiction, anger, frustration. Let it go. Break those chains so you could come to the Pesach Seder free. That's what freedom is. Ein ben chayrin elamisha Isaac b'Torah. Right? Isaac doesn't mean just learning Torah. It means being Isaac in all inyani of Torah, mitzvahs, behavior, kindness. Listen, we all have to work. I have to work on things a lot too, but take tonight and let's use it as a vehicle to catapult ourselves into Pesach with Chayris, that we can feel truly free. And when you are truly free, Hashem says, you come to the Pesach Seder free, but free from your Yetzer. Now I'm going to heap on you mitzvahs for the whole night, because you're ready to do these mitzvahs. You're clean. You're free. Now you deserve. Ein ben chayrin? Yes. Ein ben chayrin elamisha Isaac b'Torah. A person is only as free as he gives into the Torah. People think it's debilitating. People think it's hindering me. It causes too many halachos, too many laws. No. The greatest freedom is when a person knows that he has direction from the moment he wakes up till the moment he goes to sleep. And that was my brother, from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to sleep at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, whenever he went to sleep. Sometimes he didn't even sleep at night. I know there was once or twice a week, I know for sure he stayed up the whole night learning, and he would sit next to a stender actually that had names of people that needed Yeshua's. They needed Yeshua's. People that had no children, people that had cancer, people that were sick. A lot of different sorrows came to him. So many sorrows. Even mental sorrows people suffered. So you think, oh God, look, he's walking around, he must be doing okay. Who knows what's going on in a person's head? He knew. People came to him, and he took it personal. He would sit with a list, and he would learn through the night. He would learn through the night, and he would constantly, he told me, look at the paper and then learn for an hour. Look at the paper, learn for an hour. Look at the paper and learn for an hour through the night. Because somebody else's tsar was his tsar. And if it's his tsar, how does he sleep at night? How can you sleep with somebody suffering? If your leg hurts, you're able to sleep. If you have a terrible pain in your head, no. If you have a headache, you're able to sleep. If it's pounding, no. Somebody's pounding was his pounding. And therefore he couldn't sleep. So again, like I said, we can go on and on and on. Take what we see today and let it catapult us to true chayris on Pesach. And then obviously the Geula, Mitzvah Hashem, we do things we should be doing, and we'll be Zaycha. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Rabbi Walkin with Ahron ZTL.
Sorry.
Showing here Besaras Tovius. We have many Rabbanim that are going to be giving us chizuk. We had at this time Rabbi Ephraim ben Mordechai, the Menal of Yeshiva Shaarei Tzion, and the Rebbe, the Rav of the congregation, the youth meeting of Yahrzeit El Yisrael. Very close Talmud to Rabbi Walkin ZTL.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Shlomo Zalman, the son of Rabbi Walkin. I'm not sure I see him now, because he's here. I want to say thank you for coming over and spending Shabbat over with us downstairs with our minyan. You gave me a little bit of inspiration, reminder of all our conversations we had with our Rebbe. I started remembering 20 years. Started remembering all the years we were together as a bachur in yeshiva. All the times that we spend with the Rebbe in this house. So I want to thank you for coming. You should come more often. Next time, bring your family over. My son asked me a question on Shabbat while we were walking home. They saw Shlomo Zalman, and they saw how much connected he was to me. We were schmoozing away. So my son asks, Abba, why didn't you do Kriya when Rabbi Walkin passed away? And I remember that when this happened, I got a phone call saying, everyone daven for Rabbi Walkin's refuah, he needs a refuah shlema. And a couple of minutes later, we got a phone call saying he passed away. So I was thinking to myself, at that moment, I was so mixed up. Like when he passed away, it didn't struck me. I still today, I still don't understand that such a concept exists for myself. Kriya means definition that somebody passed away. He's not here anymore, and therefore you have to let go. That's it. Life goes on. I couldn't do that to myself. At that moment, I was just so mixed up. I'm going to do Kriya. Kriya means my Rebbe's not here. I didn't do Kriya. Till today I'm thinking, maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't have. I didn't. I was mixed up at that moment. I was mixed up. I wasn't myself. So this is what I told my son. I told my son, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure at that moment. When I know halachically you're supposed to do Kriya. But for me personally, doing Kriya means that my Rebbe is not here. And I will tell you personally that from the moment he passed away until today, I live with my Rebbe's words in my mind constantly, and constantly thinking, what would my Rebbe say in this situation? And there's a lot of questions coming up in yeshiva with talmidim, with members, with faculty, a lot of questions coming up. And a lot of times I feel like I have nobody to speak to. Ever since he passed away, there's nobody to speak to. Obviously, they're gedolim, they're talmidei chachamim, but someone that understands me, somebody that knows my mahut, somebody that knows who I am, who taught me, who understands how my intellect works, and still is able to take the situation and connect the situation to my intellect and to the situation at the same time. There's no one that I could really open up to. So every time I have to live with this myself, thinking, okay, I have to be the posek for myself. How? Taking my Rebbe's words and saying, what would Rabbi Walkin say in this situation? Sometimes I would get in trouble because of it. Because to me, I would say, okay, this would be the direction that I have to take in the yeshiva. Why do you have to take this direction? I can't tell them my Rebbe said so. But this is what he would say. So I want Shlomo Zalman to know, and his family, that Baruch Hashem, the legacy that you're continuing on your front, we're continuing on our front in the yeshiva by being zoche to be milamed tinokot shel bet rabban. Every single day it's an inspiration for me to go into yeshivat Sha'arei Tzion with talmidim. I'm so inspired to be able to have this zechut. And what do we give over? We give over everything we got. All the love and affection and emotion that we got from the Rebbe, we give over the same thing, we try at least. Because again, living with that picture of what would my Rebbe do, how would he behave in this situation? I remember once he walked in to Yeshivat Sha'arei Tzion. I invited him, came over. 2 instances. We had a situation where the Walkin came to speak to Kita Aleph. And I was thinking to myself, an Adam Gadol like him, how will he connect to Kita? I could connect to Kita Aleph. I'm a little kid, you know what I mean? I could connect. I could be playful with them. Rabbi Walkin, how will he be able to connect with Kita Aleph? Boys, he walks into class, and you should have just seen that episode, how he connected with the boys. And he started asking questions on their level. And they were answering. And he made a whole activity in the classroom. The Rebbe's jaw fell down when he saw what Rabbi Walkin was able to do with little kids. We're talking about 6-year-olds. This was one instance. And immediately after that he started crying. Every boy that came over to him to kiss his hand, he was crying when he saw every single Talmud. And when you were younger a little bit, you never understood why is the Rebbe constantly crying. As I'm getting older now, I understand. Sometimes I see Talmidim going through a difficult time. Some Jewish people coming to yeshiva, bringing the children to yeshiva, you get emotional. He would get emotional. Second instance, we had a situation where I invited him to speak to 7th and 8th grade boys. We had a bet midrash, I guess this size, a little bit narrower. And Talmidim were sitting, 7th and 8th grade boys. And you know, Baruch Hashem, the hardest class I think you could teach is 7th and 8th grade boys. 6th, 7th, 8th grade, difficult class. They're going through their puberty age. And in my mind I was thinking, I hope they'll be able to sit through it and the Rebbe will be able to connect to them. He was speaking for an hour and a half. And he connected with them. And they loved it. And he had a story and another story after another story. They didn't want to let him go. And then afterwards, he gave a bracha to every single boy. And they connected with him in such a way where they asked him, Rebbe, can you please stay? I have pictures. If you look at my profile is from that time when he came to Yeshivat Sha'arei Tzion, and I'm probably never going to take that profile off. It's a unique profile where he gave me a personal bracha. But this is what he did to every single Talmid that asked the bracha. From there I also understood this concept of Kemayim Panim This idea of he was so close to every single person, so Mimela, a person wanted to connect to him. They felt from him that he's real. He's real. He's indeed a real individual. It doesn't matter who he was, whether he was Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, Talmid Chacham, or Adam Pashut. He was real. And he gave over that realkeit. That is why everybody over here connected to him. The Rebbe would live in Lakewood, and he would come to us from Lakewood. He was really not happy so much to move there. He wanted to be with us. And every time he would come here, he also always told us, I wish I could be here. I love coming here. But the kavod he got here was something that I could say we're very proud to give him the kavod, only because I think he connected very much with the people here, because he showed that he is a real person. He's there for you. If I can say, what are some of the things that we could take away? Number one, I think having this strength to never give up. There was never a day that he said, I'm not coming today, I'm not feeling well. I remember once during Shiur, the Rebbe almost fainted. Mamash fainted. He almost passed out. While giving a shiur, he almost passed out. So we had to give him a drink. Immediately when he came back to himself, he continued to teach. And there were times that we went with him, his car would die in the middle, and yet still started the car, continue driving, continue coming, always dedicated to come and do what he needs to do. And that in itself gave me personally, myself, an inspiration to never give up. Just keep on going. Just go. Just move. This is what he would tell me. Just move. Ephraim, just move. Just go. He would always tell me that. So I live with it. Every single day of my life. Just go. No matter what. No matter how you feel. You have to go. You have to do. You have to do for Am Yisrael. You have to do. You have to produce. You have to do. So if one thing we would take out from our Rebbe is this idea to never waste time. Don't waste time. Just keep on going. Keep on going. Do it. Do what you need to do. Just do what you need to do. And the second thing that, again, there's so many things you could say. I could just stay here, talk about him. And that is, we should never underestimate how much koach each and every one of us has, and how much we can inspire one another. Everybody speaks, more or less everyone says the same thing about the Rebbe, but he inspired each one in different ways. Sometimes he would say a sentence, sometimes even from hitting somebody during shiur. He would hit somebody so hard. You should know this person would become so inspired and he would want to sit. Today somebody told me, he was sitting next to him and said, you know what, don't sit here, go sit over there. Moshe, come closer. Why? You have more meat than you. So you know what? That Moshe is, Baruch Hashem, we cannot stop speaking about Rabbi Walkin. And there's so many stories we could speak about, so many people that he inspired in different ways and different episodes. They tell me, and I said to him, this is what you got inspired from? Yes, he's a frum Jew today from this little sentence that Rabbi Walkin told him. So I say personally to myself that you could never underestimate, first of all, what we tell someone, or overestimate, and we could never underestimate yourself. We could think, so who am I already? What can I say? What can I do to inspire the other person? The answer is, you never know. Sometimes the Rebbe speaks and he gives Musar to one person. Once I remember Rebbe speaking to one person about a kippah, the importance of a kippah. That boy perhaps didn't even get the message, but it hit me. Now when I sleep, my kippah, if it falls off, I have to make sure that I wake up in the middle of the night. Like, this was a little thing that he was speaking to somebody else. Inspired me. So these are the two messages I could give. Perhaps never to give up. Just continue doing what you're supposed to be doing, and no matter what, don't stop. And don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate the koach that we all have, each and every one of us. You don't have to be a rav. You don't have to be a talmid chacham to inspire somebody. A regular, simple yid, you could inspire somebody just by giving a kind word, being a socher tov. Be'ezrat Hashem, we only see and live with the legacy of our Rebbe, think about our Rebbe, and only take the messages that he gave us and live with it and teach and continue to do good things. May Be'ezrat Hashem, these words should be a Melitz Yosher and Ilui Nishmat to Rabbi Ahron Walkin.
Shkach Rabbi Ephraim ben Mordechai. At this time we have with us Rabbi Yosef Akilov, who was very, very close with the Rebbe for many, many, many years, and the Walkin Mishpacha.
Leilu Nishmat, our Rebbe, Rabbi Ahron Walkin ben Esther, Rebbe Tzin Esther, Ruach Hashem Tenechenu B'Gan Eden. It's really hard to speak about the person who was like a father to every student, as Avram said. I remember a few incidents. Don't forget, it's not easy to teach kids who want to go to make money, who are immigrated in the new place, and you have to repeat same shiur 20 times because kids don't understand English. And Walkin Family, Rabbi Ahron, Rabbi Avram, Rabbi Moshe, Yoel, my Rebbe, they never showed us sour face to repeat the same shiur 20 times for boys to understand. And they did it and did it. But what I saw in Rabbi Ahron, he never gave up in nothing. Once, 2003, 2004, he didn't feel well, and it was in Maimonides hospital. So I said to my wife, we need to go to see my Rebbe. So we came. He listened to the nurse, to doctor, what they said, 100%. As soon as they left, they said, Joseph John, open that shelf over there. There's my special medication. If I will take that, I guarantee you in 2 days I could be back in yeshiva. If I'm not going to take my medication, I'm not going to be there the next few weeks. So I had to listen. So I opened the shelf and I gave him the medication. 2 days later, he was in yeshiva. He said, what do you learn from here? I said, I don't know. I said, even though you have 1,000 people to come to visit sick person, you have to go and visit him yourself. Why? Because you gave me the medication. 2 days later, I'm here. One funny incident in 1999, 23 years ago, it happened when we were learning in Binat Chaim with Rabbi Ahron. 15 guys around the table. Suddenly there was one shamash. He was a little bit not so 100%. We were learning and Sugi was going amazing. Suddenly, this guy comes in. You know, Binat Chaim, such a nice room. There's a strong echo, and this guy screamed. He said, "Oh my God!" Like yelled. We all got scared. Rabbi Walkin didn't lose himself. Said, "This is what your wife said when she married you." Like boom, on the spot he answered him back. He said, "This is what your wife said when she married you." Oh my God. On the spot he made a joke. He was very funny. He knew how to, and especially everyone knew Rabbi Walkin, that he knew how to give psak to every individual. This is the gadlut of Rabbi Walkin. He didn't use the same psak to everybody. Once I asked him, I said, Rebbe, why it should be so if the halacha is clear? He said, when you learn halacha is one thing. When you're a student of Rabbi Cheskel Roth, that's a different thing already. When you're a student of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, that's a different thing already. You saw that he had strong pillars to depend on. We also did. Until 2 years ago, we also did. And when suddenly such a news, you see that you lost your wing. You lost your wing because a lot of situations me and my brother deal with, this person's brain is working hard, his heart stopped. What happens? Do you have to unplug the machine? Yes, no? And many times throughout the year, I used to call to Rabbi Ahron, and he would tell me, listen, Yosef, in this situation, this is this. You know what? I feel like you shouldn't do it. A week later, that person got up. A week later, that person was under the machine where a few poskim said, shut it off. He said, no. Regarding halachot nida, mar'ot nida, when you came to him, once he was in Israel, I had to go to some other people. And there was the same situation. I remember that. Many poskim, they said totally different halacha. And Rabbi Walkin, what he said, he proved it. He proved it, said this is the halacha, and this is mutar, and this and this. It was shockingly, he was gadol. He was gadol. And even though we couldn't be there in the levaya, but everyone felt he's standing there. The pain. I was sitting in my kitchen. I had COVID myself that time, shaking. I'm crying, my family's crying. My wife started remembering the things that he helped her with certain piskei halachot. And then neighbors and friends and students. It was crazy. When I was giving notes to the son that I had, me, few guys, 4 or 5 guys, we never stopped writing. And I'm happy that I have all the shurim on the parasha from 2000 until 2003. All the shurim on the parasha, and this is what I use in my shul. And I called Rabbi Walkin every single day. So yesterday night, I was here, I was zocheh to be in this beautiful shul. It's beautiful. B'li ayin hara. I was happy I'm not in this area. My mother-in-law asked me to come for Sabbat, so I came for Friday night. At night we had to walk back. When we were walking back, I saw a certain beautiful yellow pit covered in the middle of the Jewel Avenue. So I stopped my son-in-law and I said to him, if this would be the volcano that we need, and if you dig a hole over here, and you'll get, like, say, 100% volcano that you need to use now. And if you go a few steps away, you dig over there, you get 70%. Volcano over there, you'll go more, you'll get 30%. I said, what do you think? When we say every night, Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, Hashem says, I'm your God who took you out of Mitzrayim. Is this the 100% volcano that we say every single night? Where is the source of this volcano? My son-in-law said, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I said to him, you know the source is? Pesach night. When you sit on Pesach, this is the light. The 100%, how they say in lighting stores, they say full spectrum, the 100% light. The main source of Kiddusha, of Yetziat Mitzrayim you get, Leila Seder. Every other night is Hachana to the Leila Seder. This is how Rabbi Walkin used to teach us what is Leila Seder. What is Leila Seder? The only time you could become somebody if you pay attention on Leila Seder, what means Hakarat Tov. Rabbi Walkin used to tell me, Yosef, when you go to Shiur, certain person invited you to their Yahrzeit, Sheva Bracha, whatever, and you give a Shiur, when you leave, who do you owe thank you to? I said, who? The guy who invited me. He said, no, to the last person sitting in the corner. Why? If he wouldn't be there, you wouldn't be Rabbi Yosef Akilov today who you are. Because if you wouldn't come to the Shiur, the other guy wouldn't come to the Shiur, the third guy wouldn't come to the Shiur. If they wouldn't listen to your Shiur, you wouldn't be who you are. This taught me for life. Anyone ever said hello to you, you owe him Hakarat Tov. If he wouldn't be part of your life, you wouldn't be who you are today. Who said that? Why it has to be that way? Because Hashem did not take me out of Mitzrayim. He took my great grandfather. And if he wouldn't, I would still be a slave. So therefore I owe him thank you. Anytime someone did to you, you want to learn how to say thank you, look at Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Yetziat Mitzrayim, many years ago. And you still say thank you. You should never forget what means Hakarat Tov. We owe Rabbi Ahron Walkin, not only Rabbi Ahron Walkin, the whole Walkin family, a lot of Hakarat Tov.
Chazak Baruch Rabbi Akilov Shlita, Baruch Haba Rabbi Obam Shlita. We have with us the Rosh Yeshiva, continuing the legacy of the Rosh Yeshiva of Rabbi Walkin ZTL from Mechal Mitzvah.
Besides, I think for Rabbi Walkin's brother, I go back with him longer than everybody over here. Since 1983. Rabbi Walkin was still a yeshiva bacher, a young bacher, and I would like to focus a little bit on how he became who he became. I'll share with you, last week we were zocher to be in Eretz Yisrael with some of the Balei Batim, and we met Reb Chaim's son-in-law. And Reb Chaim's son-in-law told us a story that happened with Reb Chaim in his house. Reb Chaim used to go bein hazmanim in middle of vacation. He used to go, by him his vacation was to switch houses. By us, when we have vacation, you have to go, there's a new place called Dubai today. That's what I hear. We have to go to Orlando. We have to go all over the place. By him, if Rabbi Obam knows what I mean, he went from Rechev Rashbam to Rechev Dveir Hanaviyah. It's going up Rashbam, the first street on the right is the Dveir Hanaviyah 22. So he used to have his key to go bein hazmanim, to go to his daughter's house to learn. Remember the story, Rafi? He used to come with his own key, and whenever he wanted to learn during the afternoon, that was his change of scenery. One Friday, he said Reb Chaim came home from the mikveh, and he changed his clothing, and he didn't have the key on him, or he took it out because of Shabbat, or he forgot to take the key with him. He wasn't sure what the reason was, but he ended up not having the key on him. He came over to the house and he started knocking on the door. He saw that he didn't have the key. At least he's going to knock on the door. He knocks on the door and nobody answers. Reb David said that he went to Yerushalayim for Shabbat. So he was knocking on the door. He locks the door. He knocked a few times, of course. People heard him knocking on the door. The neighbors started coming out. Reb Chaim Kanievsky sitting by the doors. They told him that he's not home for Shabbat. Reb Chaim goes back home and he says he thought about it the whole Shabbat. Why did he knock on the door and nobody responded? What was Hashem's message to him? Reb Chaim lived with this concept that if something happens to him, it can't be that it happened in passing. It has to be that Hashem is sending him a message. So he came, Reb David came back Sunday to his house and he says, if you remember Reb Chaim's house, he had the outside door, and then where he used to go was through the hallway, and then there was a study. Right? The Rebbe was there. So he says, I closed the second door. And if somebody has to come and knock on my door, I won't hear him because the second door is closed. So from that time on, Reb Chaim never closed the second door in case a Yid is coming to him and needs him. He wanted to have his second door open, so he never, for 30 years after that, or 25 years, never locked the door. He only had the first door closed, the second door was always open. Why? That when a Yid needs a davar chizuk, a good word, he was always there to help him out. And guys, this wasn't what he did when he's a Rosh Hashiva. When you're on top, to say that I'm going to encourage people, I have an ayin tova on people, it's a little bit easier. But to do it when you're a young yeshiva bacha, and any single boy, people used to think that we were related when we were younger. We had a geschmacka time together. He was very good at learning. He was in Avbashishir. He wasn't even by Shlomo 5. He wasn't even the highest shiur then. I'm 1 year, Lahavdil ben Achayim, 1 year younger than him. And I came into the yeshiva. He gave such warmth to every young bach. His ayin tova on encouraging people was just beyond comprehension when he was young. It doesn't happen that all of a sudden when you come into the position of leadership that you have an ayin tova on people, that you could be mechazek people, you could give people encouragement. You have to live it your whole life. My last occurrence was with him when a few months before he passed away, there was a yid that was trying to open up a yeshiva in Great Neck. And I happened to be by the meeting. He saw me, and I'm telling you, without words, he just kept on going on shvach and praising and ayin tov. It just beyond. He had an ayin tov on Yidden. He had an ayin tov. He saw everybody in a positive light, and that's the way he was able to be mechazek. Because every single Yid has a nitzotz of kedusha. In this week's parasha, we learned about a guy that was really a bad guy. A metzorah was a motzira. He was talking negatively about people for years. Hashem doesn't give somebody a punishment that he has to be badad yeshev mechutz lamachane moshavo. He doesn't give him such a punishment if he's not a bad guy. And he was a person that was talking bad about people till Hashem said to him, you know, it's time that you got to be out of society. And when he was out of society, he did a lot of teshuvah. And the Torah says, you know what the Kohen does? V'yatzah kohen, and he has to go to him. And if you read the words of the Naam Elimelech, he says that when the tzaddik realizes that this person did teshuvah and there's a nitzot and there's a spark of kedusha, he has to go out to him. V'yatzah kohen. Pirush tzarich lahatot et atzmo v'leret mimadregato. The Kohen has to humble himself. And by him humbling himself, he goes over to the guy and he says, you know what? You messed up. You did something that was wrong. But still, I'm here for you and I'm going to bring you closer. And he has to show that he cares about bringing the person closer. If he doesn't show that caring, that he really cares about the person, it's impossible to have that quality of leadership. Says, El michutz lamachane, what does that mean? El ha'adam ha'shafal hazeh, this low person, sheyatzah chutz lamachane ha'shchina, even though he stumbled and he was out of society because of his bad doings. But still, the tzaddik, the Kohen, comes down and he says, you know what, I'm going to bring you closer. A person that was so mashpia on so many Yidden, all types of Yidden. Don't think that it was only when he came over here in Queens. His whole life, every single yeshiva bacha, every kid in his class, he was always the warmest guy in the yeshiva. I'm telling you, he had such a varmkeit, a natural varmkeit, that he was mekayr of every single person from when he was Beker Cheshbon. He would be 56 or 57 now. So we're talking about 1983. Make the calculation. How old was he? 18 years old then? It started from when he was young. A person that has an Avos Yisrael, an ayin tova, could be mechazik people to different levels that it's impossible to fathom it today. We could do it in our own homes. We could do it to our own friends. Just give a guy a good word. It's not so hard. It doesn't cost any money. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be rich. Just like the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, miyamai lo kidmani adam shalom, nobody ever greeted me before I greeted him. I think it's in Rabbi Walkin. There was never a time that we met him, and we have met over the years, not in Queens, but in Lakewood, whether it was in Torah Tamima, whether it was in Lakewood, whether it was by meetings. Miyamai lo kidmani adam shalom. I couldn't even try to give the shalom that he gave to a person, and to every single person. To be mechazik another yid, we're coming to the Leila Seder, which we know that by Leila Seder we appreciate every type of Jew. The whole Leila Seder is focused on the Arbabanim because it encompasses, that's the shoresh of all types of children that are on the thing. And we have to address every single person. So when you're a Rosh Hashiva, that's part of your job. But he did it not as a Rosh Hashiva. That's why he became Rosh Hashiva. He was always warm to every single type of person. Whether he was the best learner, whether he was the troublemaker, whether he was just the guy loafing around. Those big smacks that he would give, he would give it when he was 18 years old also. Nu, was machst du? With a big zetz. And he made you feel good. And you know how many bachim even, forget about when he was older. So many bachim, he gave me a good word. It encouraged me to learn. We all have that capability. Talk is cheap. Yeah, talk is cheap. If you give a guy a good word, a good morning, how are you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate your company. Ayin Tova, realize the Kedushas Yisrael. One of the Arba Banim, everybody goes into that category. Give him a chizah, give him a varmkeit. And with that, his neshama will live on always with us. He didn't pass away. If we live with his legacy of that ayin tova and saying the good word about somebody, yehi zichro baruch, and he will live on for always.
Shkarach Rabbi Mansur, Rosh Hashiva Shlita, Shkarach to Rabbi Obam Shlita for being Mishtatef. We have with us Rabbi Travis Shlita, who was a roommate of Rabbi Walkin ZTL many, many years ago. How about Rabbi Travis?
Chazal tell us something very interesting. Godel misa sadikim yoser misrevis beis Elokeinu. When a tzaddik is nifter, when a tzaddik leaves this world, it's greater to some extent than the burning of the Beis Hamikdash. And that's hard to understand because we've been mourning the Beis Hamikdash for almost 2,000 years. We sit on the floor in Tisha B'Av and we cry and we say kinas. And Baruch Hashem get together to commemorate the passing of Rabbi Ahron. But how many people are here? 30, 40, 50, 100 people watch it. But how can we say that the misa of a tzaddik is greater than the Srevis Be'elkeinu when all of Klal Yisrael is mourning the Beis Hamikdash, but all of Klal Yisrael today is not mourning the tzaddik who was nifter. So I want to share with you a thought, and I think this will shed a little bit light on who Ahron really was. I was zochet to be Ahron's roommate when we were 18. That's many, many years ago. And when someone's very young, you can get a little bit of a feeling of their roots, of like what they're really all about, where they're going. True great people could see like at youth where someone's really going. I think there's a diuk here in what Chazal are saying, that Godel Misa Tzadikim Yosem Yisreifes Beis Elokeinu. When the Beis Hamikdash was burned, there was nothing left. It was empty. There was no kedusha in it. Chazal say it was like grinding up ground flour. It was gone. There was nothing there. It was just a building, right? So that's Shreifas Beis Elokeinu. The neshama of a tzaddik, when the neshama is a tzaddik in this world, the Shekhinah is in this world, right? And when the Shekhinah is in this world, that's a very special experience, being connected to a tzaddik and a Talmid Chacham, and somebody who has Yir Shamayim. Ahron had many, many big, incredible midas, but we're zoichet to hear from his brothers. His main midah was his connection to people, his concern. After we parted ways, we were parted ways for about 20, 30 years. We got back together. Every time I spoke to him, I felt like you were speaking to a real person. You were speaking to someone, you were connecting to a neshama. Somebody who really cared about people, and that was really, really important. Really important how the other person feels and what's going on with that person. That's the real. Rav Shimon Shkop writes in Shah Yosher. Shah Yosher's incredible sefer on Lamdas. Whoever's a real Lamdan has learned Shah Yosher, has at least heard about it. Yeah, but at the Hakdama he writes, "What's a gadol? Who's a gadol?" The word gadol is thrown around a lot today. Gadol. Everyone's a gadol. Who's a gadol? Yeah. So Rav Shimon Shkop says a gadol depends on how much connection he has with people. If he's just with himself, he's a cotton. The more his sphere of influence increases, that's what makes him a gadol. Yeah? And Ahron's sphere of influence was everybody. He cared about every single Jew, especially people who were not being so concerned about. Yeah? Community which didn't get the greatest attention from everyone. So that was Ahron's real, the fact you could connect to somebody on such a level. You know, I was thinking it's an incredible thing that I was at Rav Chaim's Levaya, and see, that's what happens from. I was at Rav Chaim's Levaya, and all of Klal Yisrael mourned Rav Chaim, but with all of the mourning of Rav Chaim, so as soon as he's nifter, there's this massive pigua in Bnei Brak. And Rav Chaim made a promise during the war, it's incredible. No missile will fall on Bnei Brak. And it held. No missile ever fell on Bnei Brak. How can you make such a promise? The only way you can make such a promise is an Adam Gadol Ma'od. His Torah is Megan. I remember when I was a young Avrech, learning by Rasiku Shalevsky. Yeah, it was the first pigua that happened to Yerushalayim. It was 6 o'clock in the morning at the central bus station. It woke up the entire yeshiva. Yeah? And Rasiku Shalevsky got up that day and he said, it's our fault. Yeah? Because Torah protects. Yeah, he brought a Medrash Chazal that Torah protects. Even there was someone killed once a mile within a certain Talmid Chacham, and Eli Novi came to him and said, there's a tain on you. Right? So Rav Chaim Kanevsky can connect the entire Bnei Brak so that not one person dies in Bnei Brak. And then as soon as he's nifter, people are passing away. Right? But what can we take from such a thing? What can we take from someone who learned Kol Torah Kula every year? Right? I have to argue on Rav Ahron's brother. Rav Ahron's brother's name is what?
Ahron.
What? Avram. I don't think that Ahron Walkin knew 0.999% of the Torah. I don't think so. I don't believe that he did. I don't believe anybody. I don't believe Rav Chaim knew that. Yeah, the Ramban writes the amount of Torah we know is like one drop in the sea, in the ocean. Yeah, that's the small. But if anybody knew Kol Torah Kula in this generation, was Rav Chaim. Yeah, it was Rav Chaim. But what are we supposed to do? We're going to be Rav Chaim. We're going to protect the whole city of Bnei Brak, the entire United States of America. No bomb will ever fall because there's one Talmid Chacham sitting in Queens. We can't make such statements. Yeah. But there is something we could take from Rav Ahron's concern, from his love, from the way he treated people. We could take that, yeah? And I think this can answer up, and I'll finish with this point, yeah? We find when a tzaddik is nifter, like every day, I've been here for a week and a half, every day I think there was a pigua in Eretz Yisrael, yeah? Rav Chaim left, the shmir went away, yeah? But there's another tzad, is that sometimes when Hashem is going to bring a gezerah on Klal Yisrael, He takes away a tzaddik, and that's a shmira, right? Right when the COVID was starting, Rav Ahron was nifter. I was like, I couldn't believe it. Rabbi Ahron Walkin is nifter, like ayeka. How could it be? Yeah, Hashem takes away a tzaddik, and that's a shmira for Klal Yisrael. But how does that work exactly? How does it work? If taking the tzaddik away is pogea in the shmira, so how could it be the opposite? It's a shmira. And I'll finish with this. I spoke to Rav Alban about this today. He agreed with me. Yeah, the shmira is when we learn from what the tzaddik represented, from what he was all about. We take his midas. That's a shmira for Klal Yisrael, because then his death didn't cause. Didn't lose anything. Adrabah gained from it. Rav Gershon Elster, I remember in Meiron. Yeah, when 45 anashim chashuvim or tzaddikim were nifta there. Yeah. And my son was there. 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I hear that in Meiron there was this accident. Yeah, but when Rav Gershon Elstein was masped these anashim chashuvim, yeah, he said they didn't lose anything in their life, nothing. Why? Because since Klal Yisrael learned from what they stood for, yeah, that's Kiddush Hashem in the whole world. Yeah, Ahron Walkin was a Kiddush Hashem. His life was a Kiddush Hashem in the whole world. Yeah, and the more we take from tonight, like his brother Avram said, the more we take tonight and we grow, that's marba the Kiddush Hashem of Ahron Walkin. Yeah, I remember as a 17-year-old bucker, he came up to me and he said, Rabbi Travis, I want you to know, my grandfather, Rabbi Ahron Walkin, he was an incredible person. He wrote a sefer in jail on Bava Kama. Can you understand that? He didn't have one sefer, nothing, just his head. And he sat down and wrote an entire sefer Iyun on Bava Kama. He says, and that's the derech that I want to go in life. Yeah, I want to follow in that way. So I want you to write. We sat down and we wrote about a whole article that was published about his grandfather. But even at the age of 17, he had such she'ifas and such taira and such chukka. Yeah, if we could take from that, so then Ahron Walkin is not nifter. He's living on, and that's a shmir for the entire Klal Yisrael. Yeah, and believe me, we're in difficult times now, right? Look at what's going on in the world. Chazal tell us, if you see war going on, it's the steps of Mashiach. It's the footsteps of Mashiach. My Rebbe, Moshe Sternbach, told me, he said when the Russians go into Crimea, he has a Kabbalah from the Gra, when they go in Crimea, yeah, it's the bells of Mashiach. And when they go into Istanbul, put on your Yontif clothing. Yeah, they've gone into Istanbul already. Okay, for its peace talks. Yeah, but it's happening in front of our eyes. Yeah, Chevli Mashiach is a mamish in front of our eyes, and we have to wake up because it's not just going to happen, right? Ahron is that one tzaddik who could wake us up, and we can learn from him. One of my Rebbe's, Rabbi David Cohen, the Rosh Yeshiva in Hebron, he asked me a question. He asked me a question. He bounced the question off of me. Chazal say, what do you do to protect from Mashiach? What do you do? Anyone know? What do you do?
Torah and Gvul Chasadim.
Oh, very good. But not just Torah, Gvul Chasadim. His askus. His askus b'Torah. What's his askus? Rabbi David Cohen asked me, what's his askus? What's his askus? He said, his askus in Torah is learning straight, 12 hours with your cell phone like this, take it and, throw it away. Yeah? You can't learn Torah with that piece of garbage, Turn it off, flush down the toilet, right? That's his askus b'Torah. Yeah, but what's his askus b'gemilas chasadim? How do you do his askus b'gemilas chasadim? What do you do? Right? His askus means all the time without stopping. How can you do it all the time? Anyone have an answer to this question? It's a difficult question, no? His askus, a person's human. Yeah, you have to stop. So said Rabbi David Cohen like this, and this mamish embodies who Ahron was. Yeah, he said his askus b'gemilas chasadim means you're always concerned about people. All the time, like this list, this credible story. He would learn and have, thank you. He would learn and with a list of people in front of him. That's called his askus b'gemilas chasadim, because he's thinking about other people 24/7 without stopping. Yeah, all the time. That's called his askus b'gemilas chasadim, to be concerned about other people, right? And if we take that midah and we put it into our lives, that will protect us from Chevli Mashiach. We should all be zeiche to see Mashiach soon, B'karav Mamish, but Nisan Asin L'Sgoyel. B'ezrat Hashem, it should be this Nisan. Amen. Kein Ratzah.
Yeshakach Rabbi Shavish Shlita. Yeshakach for everyone. Just to end off, Morav Rabotai. We all know the Talmud Torah Kenegud Kulam. The Rebbe would always encourage me, us, all of us, to continue to learn Torah. Torah, Torah, Torah. I remember always learn Torah. So I have over here notes from a shir of the Rebbe Zatzal, and he said as follows: right? We all know. So the Rebbe brought down two pshat. The first one is from the Chavetz Chaim. What does it mean? En adam mamit, en adam, en Torah niknit ela be'adam shemimit atzma. What does that mean? The Chavetz Chaim says you're dead. No one can bother you. Like Rabbi Chavez just said, throw the phone away. Focus. When you're learning, you have to focus. Make believe you're dead. People call you, people reach out to you. How are you supposed to learn and chap and learn and grow? One of the last requests from the Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal was, I want you to finish all of Shas. I want you to learn Shas. Daf Yomi. A group of us at the time, right before his Ptira, it was the new Daf Yomi cycle. We had over 100 people that joined. Whether it was the morning shir, the night shir, my shul that we had, Baruch Hashem, that we took it on. And Baruch Hashem, you have to continue strong. Many people dropped. Many people felt it was too difficult. There was COVID. There was Pesach. There's a lot of other reasons they couldn't continue. But you have to continue. But the Rebbe's pshat was, you got to chaparine. Catch and learn as much as possible. As much as you can. Chap, catch, grab more Torah. And that's what the Bet Midrash is all about. There was two tkufas. There was 20 or 30 years ago, whatever the number was, in all Simcha that the Rosh Yeshiva was there. With the older Avrechim, some of them you heard, Rabbi Rafal and Rabbi Ephraim and my older brother. And there was the new Tekufa about 7 years ago, more or less, I'm not perfect with the timing, that we started in conjunction with Chazak, the new Bet Midrash in Kola, which was a newer generation of Rabbanim. Most of the Avreichim are Rabbanim in communities today. But the Ikar was, Morai Rabotai, was to learn. And we need Chizuk, we need everyone to come, Bezat Hashem, and to continue to learn over here in the Bet Midrash. And I want to thank his family once again for continuing the legacy. There's Sfarim that they're publishing. Lev Ahron Sfarim, currently they're in Hebrew. Bezat Hashem, they're going to be in English as well. There's weekly publications. We're going to continue spreading the Torah. Because Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that's the most important thing. And we need everyone to be ambassadors. This is not a one-man show. We need to build an army to spread more Torah. And that is the message for tonight, Marah. You heard a lot of messages, but my message to end off is to increase in the Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah. As much as possible, everybody should take it upon themselves. Whatever you're learning currently, to take it up a notch. A little bit more. It's going to be hard right now with Pesach, with cleaning, with everything. And then the Chagim, you're going away, you're staying. But purposely, because it's difficult, right? Because it's going to be hard, that's what we have to encourage ourselves to do, push ourselves to do more. Just like we're going to push ourselves above and beyond, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should push above and beyond, and give us the Geulah Shlema, the final redemption, to come. Amen.